Hello my friends, my name is Artur Rehi and I am an Estonian soldier.
Mina olen Rehi.
I served my time in the Estonian Kuperjanov infantry battalion. I'm here to answer some of your questions about Estonian military. Let's get started. How many soldiers, tanks, aircraft, etc. does Estonia have? Estonia has two types of ground forces. That is conscripts and the professional force. I was part of the conscripts. That means I had to go. Every male that gets over 18 in Estonia has to serve in the military, has to serve their country. So these numbers usually are not high. Active conscript numbers, not very high, a couple of thousand. If we're talking about mobilization numbers, wartime numbers, Estonian reserve forces, everything together would be up to 100,000 men. That's a big number for such a small country. If we're talking about the professional forces, yes, we do have them. And all they do every day is train and get ready and go on missions. They are really good. I would compare them with the big standing armies of the world, like the United States Army, for example. Unfortunately, those numbers are even smaller because they are volunteer-based and professional standing force. So Estonia has a little over 1 million people in its country. So you can imagine that the professional volunteer-based standing ground force is not very large. I'm gonna leave it at that. We're talking about tanks and aircraft. Well, that is easy. We have 0 tanks and we have 0 armed aircrafts. Estonia's air defense is fulfilled by countries in NATO. Would you consider the Estonian military to be very skilled, like in terms of training and tactics? Well, if we're talking about the conscripts, then no. I wouldn't consider them to be very skilled compared to the professional standing armies of the world, especially compared to US. But if we're talking about the small Estonian standing force, professional force, then yes, I would say they are very skilled and they can be compared to the United States ground forces. If we're talking about tactics, then I gotta say, we conscripts were taught the same tactics as NATO countries. All NATO countries are trying to connect their tactics. So if war breaks out, we have a link. But I gotta tell you, man, it's not about the tactics so much as it is about the men. The men who choose which tactic to use, which decisions to take, and the men who actually do it. Because, you know, in wartime there are situations when people actually freeze, or people take too long to decide, or people actually don't have the skill to lead other men. And it is about the men, not as much as tactics. What branches does the Estonian military have? Estonian military has only 3 branches, so it's quite easy. We have Maavägi, which is ground forces. We have Õhuvägi, which is air force. And we have Merevägi, which is navy. That's it. And I know in the United States, you guys recently got Space Force. Now Estonia does not have Space Force. I wish we did. I would imagine doing my training in space. Estonian space. What is training like? Tough, difficult. It is hard. You cannot compare it to the United States Marines. The conscripts and the Marines are not comparable because, again, they are volunteer-based, professional standing army. We are conscripts. But I will tell you what we do in a day usually. You wake up at 6. Always you wake up at 6. A guy yells, "Äratus!" which is get up. In Estonian, in a rough way, you get out of your bed. I was on the top bed, so I had to get down from my bed. You have 5 minutes to be outside in the line and ready to be jogging. And if it was -10 or -5 outside, it was cold, you got to get your sneakers, your army tracksuit and everything ready. You go outside, you stand in a line, and this is all done in a jogging way because you don't have time to walk. You stand there, if nobody's late, you start running. If somebody's late, you will do push-ups. It's almost always dark in Estonia. Only 3 or 4 months we get light in this time frame, 6 AM. It's almost always dark, so I ran in the dark. You do some exercises, you do some stretching, then you go inside, you have some minutes to brush your teeth and make your bed, put your uniform on. Then you go to the line outside, you march and you eat. And then the training starts. About 7:30 AM then the training starts. And you go to sleep at 10 PM and the hygiene starts 9 to 9:30 PM. So all of the other time is training. That's what you do in the military. You train. Sometimes you go in the forest. Sometimes you stay on the grounds and you learn something, you know, theoretical. It's actually you sit in a classroom and you learn war. That's what it is. For me, it was difficult to sit in a classroom because in the army you don't get much sleep. So I was almost always falling asleep in the classrooms. You couldn't do that because otherwise they would put you in the corner and you had to stand there. So yeah. Is the entire military conscripts, and what is the difference between conscripts and volunteers in Estonian military? Conscripts have to go to the military. Every male in Estonia who gets 18 and older has to go through training. So if war breaks out, we have a lot of male population to mobilize into the Estonian army. Volunteers only go to the professional standing army if they want to make a career out of it. If they want to be a conscript, they can of course volunteer to be conscript. Again, the word conscript says everything. They're not professional standing army, they are conscripts who are trained and they will go off to be in the reserve later. I am a reserve soldier. I can call myself a soldier because in Estonia you're a soldier until you are too old to be a reserve soldier. But I am not active duty. Professional force is in the military making career out of being a soldier. Conscripts will be in the reserve force waiting for their call. Connected to this, can you make a career out of the military in Estonia? Yes, you can. I think it's a bit similar in the US, where you have to serve and you sign a contract for a few years. It's not like you can quit any time. You gotta serve years you have signed. It's the same in Estonia. Do the US troops and Estonian troops train together often? And if so, what is the experience like? They do train together often, yes. Also, Estonian active army and conscripts all train together sometimes. Now I was the company communications. I had to talk up to the battalion and up to the brigade through my radio. And brigade and battalion in Estonia usually speak in English because in that level you need to coordinate with the US troops and they don't speak Estonian. So I had to do my communications during exercises in English. I didn't speak directly to US troops, but I got the idea of it. What weapons do the infantry use? Were you ever in any joint operations with other militaries? Well, I'll start with the weapons. I was issued an AK-4. This is a very big, bulky, full metal weapon. It's a variable of G3. Now that weapon is very durable. You can hammer a nail in with that weapon. You can use it as an oar when you're, on a boat. You can do anything with this weapon and it would still fire. But the thing is, it's big, bulky and heavy and it's full metal. Nowadays they do weapons differently. They use carbon fibers sometimes. Sometimes they use different kinds of lighter metals so the weapons wouldn't be so bulky. Well, my weapon it was really old. It was almost 50 years old and it shot like a dream. It shoots a very large caliber round for just a shooter. It shoots 7.62 times 51 caliber. That is a big round. That will go through a lot of stuff. It's not a NATO round, so Estonia is switching right now. Those weapons are from Sweden. We have some other weapons, Kaljulaids from Israel, and now we have some new weapons. We have a new weapon called R20 Rehi, which is from America. Yeah, baby! Well, this weapon shoots a NATO caliber and we're finally linking ourselves with NATO with the caliber. It is from USA LMT, that's a company that produces weapons. I've never shot that weapon, but if I am called out to be trained again, I will shoot that weapon. Conscripts do not get pistols. As an anti-tank weapon we have Gustav, which is enough. It is enough. We also have javelins, but they are only used in wartime situations. USA has given us a lot of good tech. What has Estonia done to prepare for a potential conflict with Russia? Oh, we have done a lot. Since 91, Estonia has been free from the Soviet Union, and immediately Estonia has reformed its defense forces. We have the Defense League, which is a whole voluntary based defense force. We have the conscripts and we have a professional standing army. All three of those together mean that almost all Estonian male population is trained for military purposes. Yes, we cannot include them all in the standing army because we need some workforce also, but Estonia is ready. We do not want any conflicts, and officially we are not in any conflicts with Russia. But if something would happen, we are ready. For example, Latvia, which is next door neighbor to Estonia, does not have a conscript system. They only have a professional standing army, which is small, and if you don't have reserves, the trained reserves, then you're in a pickle. Would Estonia ever be willing to send troops to fight in the Middle East and other conflicts along with the US for training and real-world combat experience. Estonia is in NATO. Estonia has sent troops in Afghanistan. Right now, peace missions are going on in Mali. We have sent troops to fight there. We have sent troops to guard the peace. We have taken part in NATO allied operations. So the answer is yes. Estonia has been to Afghanistan many times actually. If you don't know, the first Afghanistan war between Soviet Union and Afghanistan, well, Estonia being the part of the Soviet Union had to send men to Afghanistan also. And some Estonian veterans have been to Afghanistan in the Soviet uniform and in the Estonian uniform, which is awesome. Does the president of Estonia control the army like how the US president is commander-in-chief? Yes and no. We have a little bit of a different presidential system than the United States. Our country is run by the parliament. But if war breaks out, then yes, president alone, without asking or consulting anybody, has the power to call on mobilization and to declare war. She can do that. Yes, we have a female president. She can do that. But in peacetime, she's not making the calls of the army, usually no. Do you think having to do mandatory service is a good thing, or would you prefer it to be voluntary? Also, how do you think Estonian security would be affected if service was voluntary? I think mandatory is better. For such a small country in Estonia, next to such big neighbors and in a place where we are, there have been many wars, almost war all the time. This is the biggest peace we have ever had. So we need to be ready. And if you do it based on volunteers, the numbers will be smaller. I think all of our male population needs to be trained, so if war comes we can call on them. So I think mandatory is better. Also makes men stronger. Does the Estonian military train for anything other than snowy forest combat? Yes, we do. We get snow from December till March in Estonia, and the rest of the year we don't get snow. So we have to train summer forest combat, we have to train urban winter and summer. So yeah, we train everything. Of course, I was not trained on the sea. I personally trained in the forest and in urban situations. That's the training Estonian conscript gets. And that's where he fights, actually. We fight in the forest and in the cities. Mostly in the forest. Do you consider yourself a good shooter, for example, at training? Me personally, I was an okay shooter. I wasn't the best. I definitely wasn't the worst. I was like, you know, if you divide the class up to 3 groups, your platoon, then I was on the upper third. So I was good, I wasn't the best. How much help do you guys actually get from the other powers, specifically United States? Like in the terms of training, equipment, and weapons. We get a lot of help. I'm going to name you some tech we get from the US, and there's surely some tech I won't name. But night visions from the United States, javelins from the United States. Now we're talking about manpower. Whew! Manpower from the United States. They are actively stationed in Estonia. If somebody attacks, they have to get through the US personnel also, which is difficult. Not always, but sometimes also US keeps their Abrams here. Abrams, the tank, the beast, the behemoth. I love it so much. United States, if you're watching, bring some more tanks to Estonia. So yeah, we have some tanks. Not we, but the US personnel has some tanks in Estonia. And the list goes on. So we get a lot of help from the US and a lot of military help from other countries also. Estonia is well connected in Europe and in Americas. Not a question, but we have a couple of old Soviet tanks here in Finland. Would you want them? Let me think. Nope. Nah, no. Soviets, equipment, out of the table. I don't want it. Estonia doesn't want it. Doesn't work. Is your equipment up to date and reliable? Do you purchase equipment from other countries? Well, the first question, is it up to date and reliable? The answer is yes and no. Estonia has 2 piles of equipment. We have a wartime pile of equipment locked away in the storehouses, and we have a peacetime training pile of equipment which is passed on conscript to conscript, and it gets worn down and it breaks down sometimes. I've got to be honest, the things I used as a conscript, they were not that reliable. They broke down sometimes because they have seen some years. 10 guys before me have used that equipment. But if war breaks out, everybody will be given new equipment, because that's why it sits there waiting for war. So I gotta answer yes, Estonian equipment is good and it is reliable. What did Julius Kuperjanov do that makes him a legend in Estonia? Oh, that's a good question, my friends. I'm from Kuperjanov Infantry Battalion and Skull stands for that. Julius Kuperjanov, well, the infantry battalion was named after him, so truly he is a legend in Estonia. In 1918, when the Reds in Russia attacked Estonia, we won that war, 1918 to 1920, and it was mostly because of Julius Kuperjanov, who freed almost half of Estonia from the Russians. He was only 24. He was only barely past his 20s when he led the army. He was a late lieutenant, a very young and talented lieutenant who had the charisma to rally men behind him and win. He won time and time again against the bigger enemy. How do you think the Estonian military will hold against a Russian invasion? Oh, now we're getting to the topic. Well, I think we will hold. Estonian forces will stand their ground until NATO forces get here. Estonia alone as a country and as a military cannot fight Russia. But we're part of NATO, so we mustn't worry. I think we are ready. We will stand our ground until NATO forces get here, and we're good. In America, we hold our military to a strict standard of fitness. Ooh. How does the Estonian military fare on fitness? I was afraid of this question. Well, the conscripts, since they are taken from all walks of life mandatorily, I gotta be honest with you here, most of the conscripts are very okay as the southern population. We don't have many fat people, but yes, we do have some very skinny people and some very fat people in the conscripts, and they gotta, you know, work hard. They gotta work hard to lose that weight or gain some more weight. We do have fitness tests, we use the same as NATO. We do have exercise every day, and if you cannot pass the fitness test, you have extra exercise. So yeah, Estonian conscript system. Make sure the people are trained, the men are trained. But I've seen what the Marines do. Nobody is as trained as the Marines. I gotta admit that. Cannot say that yes, we are as trained or as fit. No, nobody is as trained as the Marines. Leave it at that. What's your funniest moment or most memorable moment while in the service?
It's 3:30 a.m. Middle of the night, everybody's sleeping except for the communications guy. We are the ones who have to fix the radios. The radios are working now, we got them fixed, but we don't sleep while others sleep. We don't, because this needs to be done by 7 in the morning so we can carry on our exercises and training, so not easy being a soldier.
And with this question, I will conclude this video. My friends, thank you for watching. Thank you for showing interest in the Estonian military in the country of Estonia, my homeland. If you like my videos, maybe you want a second part to this one, write it in the comments. Or maybe you like this video very much, then you can support the channel. The easiest way to do that is in the Patreon. The link is in the description below, or PayPal. This is also in the description below. Thank you so much for watching, for being there, and as always, until my next video, stay cool my friends, and bye bye.